In today's video, I'm going to take you through 5 really simple to make bass lines that you can use probably mainly in drum and bass, but they work with pretty much every genre. So first of all is the Bristol bass line, which sounds like this. We've then got the liquid bass line, very sort of Netsky, that sounds like this. The Reece bass, which I mean is very Blade Runner, he uses it all the time, that sounds a bit like this. Now, kind of more of a, I used it in my dubstep video last week, which I know you've seen, the harmonic bass, which sounds like this.
To the left, to the right, get it all night.
I like that with the chemistry, yeah. And when you bite back, you can remedy that. I'm into energy and telling the facts, tenderize my tendencies. Oh, ribs, they better be back, so relax, I'm on the track.
And then finally, and this is, by the way, the one that takes the longest because it's the most complex, because minimal is the best subgenre of drum and bass, and that sounds like this. There's so much amazing content here that you probably want to like the video. By liking the video, leave a lovely comment, you know, just telling me how great I am as a person. And if you haven't subscribed, then do you know what I mean? Just click that subscribe button. It means a lot to me. It will mean even more to you because you've also put the notifications on. So, I mean, let's get into it. Let's make a Bristol bass, guys. Let's do it. Cool. That was a good intro, Isaac. Good intro. It's the easiest bass in the world to make. All you have to do is take 2 basic shapes like this and then crank the fine all the way to 100 and you've immediately got that sort of wobbly sound. I mean, what more could you possibly want in life? What you could also do is enable the filter just to give it some drive. If you just wanted to make it sort of your own, you can do things like apply drive to it, which sounds pretty nice. What you could also do, give it a lot of release. So it's more of a kind of an 808. So in context with some other drums, what that sounds like is this. Yeah, so that's the Bristol bass. Next on the list is the liquid bass. So all you need to do on this is open up on oscillator A, analog BD sign, and then on Serum, you have this little pencil tool. And what that does is it opens up this view here. And then if I just click and hold, kind of drag to the bottom and pull all the way across, you can see that I'm deleting all of those other bits. And then I've got this bin 1 here, which is default at about 67%. And then on bin 6, what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase that to about sort of around about 40. And that gives us this wobbly shape here. Now that sounds like this. So it's just giving us some extra harmonics, which obviously sounds amazing. Now what we want to do is we want to create sort of like, I always think it sort of looks a bit like a shark tooth, kind of like a shark tooth LFO. And we're just going to apply that to the level of oscillator A. What we're then going to do is we're going to turn the sub all the way down and do exactly the same. And then that gives us this sound. Turn the master down a bit. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to turn the random down. I'm also going to put this on trigger mode. So it's going to trigger the same thing every single time so we get the same hit on that note. And what we could also do is just put the filter on, give it a bit of drive. And it's making it sound absolutely delicious. What we're then going to do is we're going to go into the effects, put on some distortion. I like using soft clip, for example. Put the mix to about 50%, bring the drive down a little bit. So So it's just giving us a bit of grunge. Chorus in this always sounds nice. Again, a lot of the time you just play around with it. Make sure this is on high pass. You can click it here, turns to high pass, low pass, and then a compressor. Give it a bit of gain, bring the threshold down a bit, and that's pretty much it. Oh yeah, and put it in mono. Don't forget to put it in mono. Now, the only other thing that I'd recommend that you do is play around with the rate of this. One of the things that I personally really like to do with these kind of sounds is I actually like to turn the BPM off and then control it with the sort of the freeform rate here. So I've done that in some other videos before. It's just a really nice effect to make it sound a little bit more unique. So if we then just play it alongside some drums and some chords, and I'm just going to control it using this here, you'll see what I mean.
Why keep you hiding where the sun is dark?
Or what you could do is you could just put it on this.
Why keep you hiding where the sun is dark?
Either or, that sounds pretty nice. The Reece bass, again, is just one of those really simple bass lines that sounds good with pretty much any genre. And again, it is just ultra simple to put together. So you're going to turn on oscillator A and B. You're going to go on the fine, you're going to go plus 24. On the oscillator B, you're going to go minus 24. You're going to turn the filter on. You're going to put it on MG low 24 like this, on A and B, and then you're going to give it a little bit of drive. You're then going to turn on this little symbol here, and that's key tracking. So that means that it's going to open up the filter more when you play a higher note, and it's going to close it down more when you play a lower note. It just sounds better. What you're then going to do is you're going to turn the random down on both oscillator A and B, and you're going to increase your unison to 5. As long as it's an odd number, so it's got the line in the middle, you can sort of detune it as well if you want it to be a bit of a tighter sound. Put it in mono as well. And it's just a lovely weighty kind of sub. And then in context with some other sounds.
Why keep you hiding where the sun is dark? It's undefined, want to know where you are. Why keep you hiding where the sun is dark?
But then you could also use it for sort of jungle as well.
I like that with the chemistry, yeah. And when you bite back, you can remedy that.
So the next bass that we're going to talk about is actually the bass that I did in my last videos, a harmonic bass. Now it's really easy to put together. All you need is you need to go to analog BD sign, and then in oscillator B you're going to go digital and then harmonic series. So it looks like this. Now when you then increase the wet position, you can see that it's just given us loads more frequencies. Maybe, I don't really know what these are, but it's given us a lot of them. Now, when you play it on its own... Oh, there's a cat. Hello, you are a lovely cat. When it plays on its own, it sounds like this. But when you then increase the wet position, it's given us more frequencies. It's doing something cool. And I'm not gonna lie, that as a bass line on its own sounds really good, I think. But listen to what happens when you do things like FM from B using this. And then you push it up an octave or two. And for all you jump up heads out there, this one's for you, it's not for me. So you got sort of like a nice jump up style bass. Then what you can do is you can start playing around with the LFOs, for example. What you could do is you could apply a macro to this bit here, and then when you increase it, do you want out? Go on then. So if you were to then include it with some other things, might sound a bit like this.
I like that with the chemistry, yeah. And when you bite back, you can remedy that.
Which sounds pretty goddamn nice. Now, the final bass that we're going to talk about is the minimal bass, and this is the one where it's gonna take a little bit more finessing, because you know, minimal is the best genre of drum and bass, and you know, I wanna take my time with it. So what we're gonna do in Serum is we're gonna use analog BD sine twice. We're gonna turn the random down on both. We're then gonna turn the level all the way down on oscillator B, and then we're gonna FM from B on oscillator A. So this is what that would sound like. Sounds pretty awful. What we can do is we can increase the octave by maybe like 2, 3, and then that gives us this. Maybe 3. What we want to do is we then want to control the level with an LFO of oscillator A. And there's a couple of different shapes that we can use. So a classic one like this, it's just going to give us that kind of, it's got more of like, that's kind of like an 808. So we can give it like a bounce. Not really minimal, but the shapes that I like to use is kind of like this. And I like the sort of slower rates as well. What we also want to do is just put that on trigger mode. Some other shapes that we could do is just your sort of classic. I think that one sounds quite good. What we can then do is just give it a bit of drive, and I'm going to put a little bit of distortion on there as well. The patches are always quite simple. You just want a nice weighty sub at the bottom. Where it becomes more minimal is when we then start to, first of all, control the macro of the FM from B, and then start applying filters to different parts of it. I'm going to apply macro 1 to FM from B like this. Bring it down a little bit because you're never going to want it to go all the way to the top. And then we're going to control that in this clip here. So I'm going to make sure that this is enabled. So here you can see now macro 1, and this is going to be our FM from B. And there's a couple of shapes that we might want to consider. So we might want to do something like this and maybe repeat it across. Maybe that's a bit fast, so maybe what we could do is we could just do it like that. Or maybe, I haven't planned this at all, so I'm just kind of going off of what might sound good. And maybe that just wants to be sort of a bit more sustained. Cool, all right, so let's just pretend that we really love that. Then what we want to do is we want to add in an audio effects rack, and we want 2 channels. What a shock. We're gonna go for a sub channel, and then we're gonna go for an FX channel. Now this is where things start to get super duper interesting. So on the sub channel, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go for an EQ8, and we're gonna turn off the first number 1, and we're gonna click on the little arrow here to give us this much harsher cutoff. Now we're gonna probably want this round about 150, and the reason that we do that is so that all of the tops are cut out when we've automated it. Maybe give it a touch more, just so that we have that extra harmonic. Now, what we're going to do on the FX is, you guessed it, we're going to do the complete opposite. So this is at 179, which means that we're going to make this the harsh kind of cut, and we're going to make this 179. When we then listen to this one, it's just taking care of the tops. If we were to play them together, it's going to sound exactly the same. On the FX EQ, what we're also going to do, using the same harsh cutoff, is we're going to bring that right down so that we now have a bandpass filter. And that sounds like this. And that's already given us that kind of like wob sort of sound. And what we want to do is we want to accentuate that wobby sound with some things like erosion, for example, makes it a lot grittier. And then that gives us more frequencies that we can then saturate and distort and do whatever. So if we go for noise, for example, put it around about the 460 mark. So you can see here, make it a bit wider. You can hear it's giving it that kind of grit. Sounded pretty goddamn nice. What we're going to do is we're going to add a saturator, give it some drive. We could also give it some distortion. So if we go into maybe some overdrive would sound good. What we could also then do is give it a little bit of reverb as well, which would sound nice. Give it some low cut. And what we could even do is we could then give it some things like echo. I mean, this is the point where you guys just want to be applying different effects and trying things out and whatever, you know, then you can craft your own sound. Now, when we then put the sub back on top of it, Some other things that you might want to do is give it loads more reverb. And then make sure that you're controlling all of the tail of that reverb with a side-chained kick. This is really just the foundations of creating this type of bass, and then you just want to absolutely annihilate it with FX, because that's where it starts to get really interesting. Now, in the past, what I do is I would just record loads of different versions of this and then start squashing them all together. Like, the way that I would typically do it is when I'm happy with a particular sound, I would then create a recording channel like this, and I would just record the sound that I'm happy with. So, for example, I really like that long reverb tail. Well, some of the other things that you want to be doing here is you want to be giving sort of different types of automation like this. Like that just sounds cool. And then maybe we want that one. And then we've got this cool little one here. And then what else could we do? Maybe we like that one. Put that over here as well. And this is the thing, guys, like there's no simple solution to this. You know, there's no kind of like guy on TikTok saying save all of your songs with this one trick. A lot of it comes down to experimentation, right? And I learned this myself just by making, you know, some happy mistakes. But if I'd known this like 5 years ago, it would have been an absolute game changer with making minimal, because I had no idea how to make those kind of like cool sounds. I mean, that just sounds cool as well. So we have now, just from that one patch and just changing around some of the filters, these are the sounds that we've come up with. Maybe what we could then do is start messing around with some of the effects that's in Ableton itself. So if we go to beats and then arrow forward, bring this down on like 8. That just sounds really cool. So let's just put that back in the, you know, with the original bass patch. What we can do is we can actually just now turn off the effects. And then that wants to be sort of now like repeating across. And then what we would do is we'd swap that out for some others like this. And that would want to go into, the issue is I'm now just turning this into a proper tune, which is not what I was going for, but I just can't help myself. I just cannot help myself. We'll just give this one loads of reverb like that. Sidechain compression from the sidechain like that. And then what we could do is we could take something like this and we could turn it into maybe just a hit like that. Or we could drop it down 12 like that. So like if we just turn this into sort of a bit of an intro, it could sound a bit like this. But yeah, you get the idea. So from this one minimalist kind of sound, we were able to come up with all this other cool stuff just by making some little changes, recording it, adding in some literally random effects, and that's how you do it. Do you know what I mean? It's pretty easy. I'm joking, it's taken me years to get to this point, but hopefully this has been useful. Yeah, I wanted this to be sort of like a more simple video. I know some of the others move at a ridiculous pace because of my huge, undeniable intelligence, but I wanted this to be more of a, these are the sounds that I use all the time, and here they all are. I use these 5 basses like pretty much in every song. I just supply loads of different effects to them. So if you found it useful, let me know by dropping a comment in the comment box below. Leave a like if you've liked it. If you've not liked it, then, I mean, don't dislike it, because, you know, that would hurt my feelings. Yeah, so don't do that. For all those people who have been messaging me on Instagram, and this isn't even a merc, there were a lot of you. I never check that Instagram, and I've replied to as many of you as I can, and I will try and do better. If you want to hit me up, SoundCloud is, you know, that's where it's at, because that's where my music's at. So I think that'll do it for today. Subscribe. All right. If you haven't, click it. Just click it now. Cheers.